For more on the latest, I'm joined by Yan Éiglaند, the Secretary General of the Norwegian Refugee Council, which has multiple staff members on the ground in Gaza. He spent a long time trying to build a path to peace in this region. Hard to even imagine having that conversation right now. Yan, that was a key facilitator in negotiations that led to the Oslo Peace Accords in 1993. Yan, you have seen it all. It's one thing I keep hearing from all of our guests is that they haven't seen anything quite like this and the scale at which all of this is happening right now. First and foremost, let me ask you about how your team is doing on the ground. Are they all accounted for?
They were all accounted for this morning. We hope and pray they will also be safe tomorrow morning. But many of them are fleeing for their life. These are aid workers. They've been now helping fellow Gazans for decades. Now they're fleeing for their lives. The majority of them live in Gaza City and the surrounding in the north. And what Israel has come with is an impossible and illegal order of enforced relocation. So don't talk about it as if it was a humanitarian evacuation. It's what is described in this Geneva Conventions as forcible transfer. It's a war crime according to international law. Israel has to reverse this order, and the United States, the United Kingdom, Germany, European Union, all Arab countries that have influence on Israel have to make them reverse this impossible and illegal order.
We heard from Secretary of State Blinken in Qatar earlier this morning, where he stressed once again that he had been speaking with Israeli counterparts about establishing some sort of safe zones within Gaza. Can you just describe to us within Gaza itself, are there safe zones in this area right now, given that there is this mass evacuation? Are safe zones even possible?
Safe zones are possible. A lot of schools and hospitals, including our own office in Gaza, that we are now asked to have a relocation from, have been deconflicted, as we say. We have given coordinates to the Israelis. The schools, the hospitals, and so on, civilian housing are sacrosanct under international law. We all have to fight terror and terrorism that Israel was struck with so horribly this weekend. But don't smash everything around 1 million children. This would be terrible also for Israel's long-term security. There will be a generation of hatred here.
So Yan, given your history and expertise in this region and in this conflict, when Israel is warning and sending out messages for those in Gaza to flee south, and Hamas is telling them to remain in place, ultimately, who is responsible in terms of the safety of Palestinians? Because you would agree, I would imagine, that Israel has a right to defend itself, and obviously, as it set out on its mission, to destroy Hamas terrorist cells.
Yeah, and international law is very clear, and many countries are under terrorist attack, many countries. You go after the terrorists, you take them, you take their funding, you take their arms. You described there were teams going in to release hostages and take the terrorists. That is what other countries do. To smash entire civilian cities is disproportionate. It's a violation of international law, and it's not in the interest of Israel. We're all wanting now to have also the hostages released. I'm appealing on that constantly on Arab-speaking media that I know Hamas is listening to. Let's all work to see a ceasefire now. Too many children have died.
So for more on all of this, I'm joined by the Secretary General of the Norwegian Refugee Council, Yan Éiglaند. He's in Oslo, Norway. He's been speaking to his team who are on the ground in Gaza. Yan Éiglaند, welcome back. I mean, you are a veteran, I'm sorry to say, of so many of these horrendous situations. In terms of humanitarian, how do you foresee a state that is declaring war on a murderous attack able to protect civilians? What do you think is going to unfold?
I think it's a horrific situation. It's going to be much, much worse in the coming days. Yes, it started with terror. There's no other way to describe men going into Israel and killing civilians in the hundreds as they did. But now a siege on an entire population. There are 2.4 million people in Gaza. It's like no other place on earth. They are crammed together in a small area, which is smaller than the municipality of Oslo, where I'm sitting. 1 million of the 2.4 million are children. And then they declare now, the Israeli side, that they will cut food, water, electricity, fuel. It's going to amount to war crimes if children are going to starve and die in hospitals because of lack of electricity, for example.
As you know, war crimes are being committed by Hamas against civilians inside Israel, with the slaughter of innocents there.
Absolutely.
What are you hearing from your actual teams on the ground?
What I'm hearing on the ground of our 52 courageous aid workers inside Gaza is that they desperately want to start relief work for widows with children who have lost their apartments because of the intense bombardment. But we cannot, under this indiscriminate bombardment, plan and execute relief work. We need some calm. That's why I support the call for humanitarian corridors. They should come both from Israel, which has declared they don't want to kill children, they don't want to starve children, so let's have humanitarian corridors. Secondly, we need safe zones where there will be no bombardment. Even the UNRWA schools have had bombardment very close to them. My colleagues, several of them, have had apartments now damaged. They had to flee. The relief workers had to flee. 5 this morning were in entire neighborhoods that were declared as targets of attack, the whole entire neighborhood, and they also had to flee. It's beyond belief, really, what's happening.
Yan Éigland, I mean, put on a diplomatic hat for a moment. Is there any way you think that there can be any quote-unquote de-escalation? Or is it just obvious that Israel is going to have to take this war finally to finish off Hamas in Gaza? And do you think that that's possible?
Well, number one, the violence can end tomorrow. There can be talks that would lead to all of the hostages from Israel being released. The latest outrageous statement by Hamas is that they will start to kill hostages if there are more bombardment. The US, Egypt, and the Gulf countries have to mediate something that gives security guarantees for Israel, but also a lifting of the siege, some hope, some future, some possibilities for the youth of Gaza that have no hope. They fuel bitterness in their neighborhood with the policies they've had now for many years. In 2014, 2,000 civilian Palestinians were killed in the bombardment from Israel at that time. There's been too much blood and violence for too many years between the two peoples.